Imagine that tonight, while you sleep, every single atom in your body is quietly replaced with another identical atom. Tomorrow morning, you wake up, you look the same, you sound the same, you remember your childhood, you recognize your family, you still laugh at the same jokes. But here's the question: would you still be you, or would you be someone else who only believes they are you? That's not science fiction. It's actually much closer to reality than most people realize. The atoms inside your body are constantly being exchanged with the world around you. The oxygen you breathe, the food you eat, the water you drink, they become part of you, while yesterday's atoms leave. In a sense, the physical material that makes up your body is always changing, so if your atoms keep changing, what exactly stays the same? Is you, your brain, your memories, your personality, your DNA, or is there something even deeper hiding beneath all of those? Think about it. You are made of the same fundamental particles as stars, oceans, mountains, and galaxies. Nothing in the universe looks at those particles and says, this one belongs to you. Nature doesn't label them, yet somehow out of billions of tiny atoms, a person appears, someone who dreams, loves, fears, creates, remembers, and asks impossible questions. How can a collection of ordinary atoms become a conscious human being capable of wondering about itself? That's one of the greatest mysteries science has ever faced. Today, we're going on a journey through neuroscience, biology, psychology, physics, and philosophy to explore a question every human has asked at least once. What makes you? You. Because by the end of this talk, you may discover that your identity isn't nearly as simple, or as permanent, as you once believed. Take a moment and look at your own hands. They've probably looked almost the same to you for years. They feel familiar, they seem permanent. It feels natural to believe that the body you're living in today is the same body you've always had. But here's something astonishing. The human body is not a statue. It is not a machine built once and left unchanged. It is more like a city under constant construction. Every second, millions of cells die while millions of new ones are born. Your skin quietly replaces itself. The lining of your stomach renews itself. Your blood cells are constantly being produced and recycled. Even your bones, which feel as hard and permanent as stone, are continuously broken down and rebuilt by living cells. Your body is less like a photograph and more like a movie. Always moving, always changing, even when you don't notice. Now think about that for a moment. If your body is constantly replacing its parts, why do you still wake up every morning feeling like the same person? Imagine owning a wooden ship. Every year, one old plank becomes damaged and is replaced with a new one. Then another plank is replaced. Then another. Eventually, after many years, every single piece of wood has been exchanged for a new one. Is it still the same ship? This ancient puzzle has fascinated philosophers for thousands of years because it forces us to ask a deeper question. Is identity determined by the material something is made of, or by the pattern that holds everything together? Now, replace the ship with yourself. The oxygen you breathe today was floating through Earth's atmosphere only hours ago. The water inside your body may once have been part of a glacier, an ocean, or even another living creature. The carbon atoms in your muscles were once inside plants that captured sunlight. Those plants were eaten, transformed into food, and eventually became part of you. Even more astonishing, many of the atoms inside your body were forged billions of years ago inside exploding stars. Before they became your bones, your muscles, your heart, or your brain, they were traveling across space as dust from ancient supernovas. In other words, you are literally borrowing pieces of the universe. And one day, those same atoms will leave you again, to become part of something else. Nature doesn't manufacture brand new atoms every time a baby is born. It simply rearranges the same cosmic building blocks into new forms. The atoms in your body are incredibly old. They've been part of stars, oceans, mountains, dinosaurs, forests, and countless other living things long before they became part of you. So if the atoms themselves aren't uniquely yours, then what is? Think about your childhood. Almost every cell in your body has changed since then. You've grown taller, your voice has changed, your face has changed. Your brain has formed trillions of new connections through learning and experience. The physical matter that made up the 5-year-old version of you has been gradually replaced over the years. And yet, when you look at an old photograph, you don't say, "That's someone else." You point to that little child and confidently say, "That's me." But how can that be true if almost everything physical has changed? This is where science becomes deeply fascinating. Your identity doesn't seem to depend on the individual atoms inside you. Those atoms come and go like visitors passing through a busy city. What remains is the incredibly organized pattern, the relationships between your cells, your memories, your experiences, and especially the vast network inside your brain. Imagine listening to your favorite song. The notes don't all play at the same time. One note disappears before the next one arrives. Every sound exists only for a brief moment before fading away. Yet somehow your mind doesn't hear disconnected notes. It hears a melody. Your body works in a surprisingly similar way. The individual parts keep changing, but the overall pattern continues. It's that ongoing pattern that creates the sense of continuity you call yourself. Think of a river. Stand beside a river today, and return tomorrow. You'll probably say you're looking at the same river, but are you? The water you saw yesterday has already flowed downstream and been replaced by completely different water. Not a single drop remains exactly where it was, yet the river still has the same name. It follows the same path. It looks familiar. The identity of the river isn't the water itself. It's the pattern of movement. Perhaps we are much more like rivers than we realize. The atoms inside us flow in and out throughout our lives, while the pattern that organizes them continues from one moment to the next. This idea changes the way we think about ourselves. We often imagine that somewhere inside us there's a tiny, unchanging object called me. But modern science paints a different picture. Instead of being fixed objects, we are dynamic processes. We are living systems that remain stable, precisely because they never stop changing. It's a beautiful paradox. You stay the same because you're constantly changing. Every heartbeat replaces molecules. Every breath exchanges atoms with the atmosphere. Every meal rebuilds your body. Every experience reshapes tiny connections inside your brain. Chonshin isn't the opposite of life. Chonch is life. And perhaps that's the most remarkable realization of all. The question was never, how does your body stay the same? Because it doesn't. The real mystery is something far more extraordinary. How can something that is constantly changing create the powerful feeling of being one continuous person from childhood to old age? That question takes us beyond biology and into one of the greatest mysteries of science, the human mind itself. Now, if our bodies are constantly changing, then maybe the answer to our identity isn't hidden in our muscles, our bones, or even the atoms that make us up. Maybe it's somewhere else. Most people immediately point to the brain, and that seems like a reasonable answer. After all, if someone loses a finger, they're still the same person. If they break a bone, their personality doesn't suddenly disappear. But when the brain changes, something much deeper can change. Memories can fade, emotions can shift, personality can transform. Sometimes, after a serious brain injury, family members say something heartbreaking. They look at the person they love and quietly admit they don't feel like the same person anymore. Why would damage to one organ have such a profound effect on identity? Because your brain is unlike any other organ in your body. Your heart pumps blood, your lungs exchange oxygen, your kidneys filter waste. But your brain creates an experience. It creates the world you see, the voice you hear inside your own mind, the memories you treasure, the fears you carry, the dreams you chase, and the feeling that there is a you, sitting behind your eyes, experiencing life. That feeling seems so obvious that we rarely stop to question it. Right now, you probably feel as though there is a single person inside your head, watching the world like someone sitting in the audience of a movie theater. Your eyes are the screen, your ears are the speakers, and somewhere deep inside is the real you, quietly observing everything. But neuroscience suggests something surprising. Scientists have searched the brain for decades. They've mapped regions responsible for language, movement, vision, emotion, memory, decision-making, and countless other abilities. Yet they have never found one tiny place labeled the self. There isn't a little control room with a miniature version of you sitting inside your head, pressing buttons and making decisions. Instead, your sense of self appears to emerge from billions of neurons communicating with one another every second. Think about that. Each individual neuron is incredibly simple. It receives signals, it sends signals. On its own, it has no thoughts, no dreams, no ambitions, and certainly no idea who you are. Yet when around 86 billion of these neurons connect through trillions of synapses, something extraordinary happens. Out of that immense network emerges music, mathematics, imagination, humor, love, curiosity, and somehow the feeling of being you. It's almost impossible to wrap your mind around. No single neuron knows your name. No single neuron remembers your first day of school. No single neuron falls in love, but together they create a person. It's similar to an orchestra. Imagine listening to a beautiful symphony. You hear one breathtaking piece of music. But the music isn't hiding inside the violin. It isn't trapped inside the piano. It isn't stored inside the trumpet. Each instrument only plays its own small part. Only when every musician performs together does the symphony exist. Your brain works much the same way. Conscious experience isn't located in one neuron. It's created by countless neurons working together in patterns of astonishing complexity. Now let's think about memory. Many people believe memories are stored like videos on a computer. They imagine opening a mental folder labeled birthday party or first day at school and replaying the recording exactly as it happened. But that's not what your brain does. Every time you remember something, your brain reconstructs it. Imagine taking apart a puzzle and rebuilding it every single time you want to look at the picture. Most of the time, the picture comes back looking almost identical. But occasionally, tiny details change. New emotions become attached. Certain pieces become clearer while others fade away. In other words, memory isn't a perfect recording, it's an active process. Every time you remember your childhood, you're not simply replaying the past. You're recreating it using the information your brain still has available. That means your identity is constantly being updated. The person you believe yourself to be today isn't exactly the same person you believed yourself to be 10 years ago. Not because your past disappeared, but because your understanding of your past keeps evolving. Think about a friendship. Perhaps someone who once made you angry now seems understandable after years of experience. Perhaps an event that felt like a failure eventually became the reason your life improved. The events themselves didn't change, your brain changed the story, and stories are incredibly important. Human beings don't simply collect memories. We connect them, we organize them into one continuous narrative. My childhood, my education, my family, my successes, my mistakes, my future. Without realizing it, each of us spends every day writing an autobiography inside our own minds. It's never completely finished. Every conversation adds another sentence, every decision writes another paragraph. Every challenge edits previous chapters. Your identity isn't just what happened to you. It's the meaning your brain gives to what happened. This is why two people can experience the exact same event and come away with completely different lives. One person sees failure and decides they're incapable. Another sees failure and decides they've just learned something valuable. The event is identical, the story is different. And that story gradually becomes the person. This is also why people can change so dramatically. Someone who was painfully shy as a teenager may become a confident speaker later in life. Someone who was impatient may become deeply compassionate. Someone who once believed they were destined to fail may completely rewrite their future after discovering a new purpose. If identity were fixed, none of this would be possible. Instead, the brain remains remarkably adaptable throughout life. Scientists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself by creating and strengthening new connections. Every skill you learn, every language you practice, every habit you build, every challenge you overcome, physically changes the wiring of your brain. That means every experience leaves a fingerprint on who you become. Even this very moment. Even this conversation, as you're listening, billions of neurons are changing their connections ever so slightly. New ideas are being compared with old beliefs. Some connections grow stronger. Others weaken. Tiny physical changes are occurring inside your brain that may influence how you think tomorrow. In a very real sense, learning changes who you are. Perhaps that's one of the most beautiful truths about being human. You are not trapped inside the person you were yesterday. Your brain is constantly learning, adapting, growing, and rewriting the story of your life. But after discovering all of this, an even bigger mystery appears. If memories are reconstructed, if personality can change, if the brain is constantly rewiring itself, then who exactly is experiencing all of these changes? Who is the silent observer behind every thought? Who is aware that thoughts are happening at all? And that question leads us directly into one of the deepest mysteries in all of science. The mystery of consciousness itself. Now we've reached the question that has challenged scientists, philosophers, and thinkers for thousands of years. We've talked about the body changing. We've explored how the brain builds memories, personality, and the story of your life. But none of that answers the deepest question. Why does any of it feel like something at all? Right now, as you're listening to my voice, you aren't simply processing sound waves. You're actually having an experience. You are aware of these words. You can agree with them, disagree with them, question them, or connect them to your own memories. Somewhere inside your mind, there is a feeling of being present. That simple feeling is called consciousness. It sounds like an ordinary word, but it may describe the greatest mystery in the entire universe. Think about it. Your smartphone can recognize faces. A computer can solve mathematical equations faster than any human. Artificial intelligence can write essays, generate images, translate languages, and answer questions. Yet none of these machines have ever said, "I watched the sunset today, and it made me feel peaceful." They process information, but do they experience anything? We don't know. Now compare that to your own brain. Your brain weighs only about 1.5 kilograms. It uses roughly the same amount of electricity as a small light bulb. It is soft enough to be damaged by a simple fall. It is made mostly of water, fats, proteins, and billions of microscopic cells. Nothing about those ingredients seems magical. If I placed every chemical found in the human brain on a laboratory table, you wouldn't point to one and say, "There's consciousness." There isn't a molecule called awareness. There isn't an atom called thought. There isn't a neuron labeled imagination. And yet, somehow, when these ordinary physical parts interact in extraordinary ways, a conscious mind appears. How? That is the mystery. Imagine standing outside a football stadium before a championship game. One by one, people begin arriving. 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. Eventually, 50,000 fans fill the stadium. Now something completely new exists. An atmosphere, excitement, energy. Emotion. No single fan creates that atmosphere. It emerges from everyone together. Scientists use a word for this phenomenon. Emergence. Emergence happens when simple things interact and create something far more complex than the individual parts. A single water molecule isn't wet, yet billions of them together create the property we call wetness. One ant seems almost insignificant, but an entire ant colony behaves like a highly organized society. One neuron cannot think, yet billions working together somehow produce consciousness. Many neuroscientists believe consciousness is an emergent property of the brain. But even if that's true, it doesn't completely solve the mystery. Because emergence explains that consciousness appears. It doesn't explain why it feels like something to be conscious. Imagine looking at the color blue. Scientists can measure the wavelength of blue light. They can watch the electrical signals traveling through your visual cortex. They can identify which neurons become active, but none of those measurements explain what blue actually looks like inside your experience. The feeling itself remains private. No one else can step inside your mind and see the exact blue that you see. The same is true for pain. If you accidentally touch a hot stove, doctors can observe your nerves firing. They can watch your brain react using advanced scanners. They can even predict that you're in pain. But no machine can directly experience your pain. Only you can. Your conscious experience belongs entirely to you. Every person in this room is living inside a private universe that no one else can fully enter. Isn't that extraordinary? We spend our entire lives surrounded by conscious minds, yet we can never directly experience another person's thoughts. We only communicate through words, facial expressions, actions, and emotions. Language is our bridge between separate worlds of consciousness. Now here's another fascinating question. When does consciousness begin? A newborn baby experiences the world very differently than an adult. Over time, awareness becomes richer. Language develops, memories accumulate. The sense of self grows stronger, but at what exact moment does simple awareness become the complex consciousness we experience today? Science doesn't yet have a complete answer. Now consider another mystery. Every night, you fall asleep. For several hours, your conscious experience changes dramatically. Sometimes you dream vivid stories, sometimes you experience complete darkness, with no memory at all. Then, every morning, consciousness returns as if someone quietly switched the lights back on. Where did your conscious experience go? How did it come back? Again, science understands many of the brain mechanisms involved in sleep, but the subjective experience itself remains deeply mysterious. Or think about anesthesia. Before surgery, a doctor asks you to count backwards, 10, 9, 8, 7. Then nothing. Hours pass. You have no awareness of time, no dreams, no memories, no experience. Then suddenly, you wake up. To you, it feels as though no time has passed at all. Where was your conscious mind during those missing hours? How can awareness simply disappear and then return? Questions like these remind us how much remains unknown. Sometimes people assume that because science has accomplished incredible things, landing spacecraft on distant planets, decoding DNA, discovering black holes, we must already understand the human mind. But in truth, consciousness remains one of science's greatest frontiers. We know an astonishing amount about how neurons communicate. We understand electrical impulses, chemical neurotransmitters, brain networks, neural circuits, mirror formation, decision-making, vision, hearing, movement. Yet the leap from electrical activity to personal experience is still one of the biggest, unanswered questions in modern science. Some scientists believe we'll eventually solve it through neuroscience alone. Others think we'll need entirely new theories about information, complexity, or even the fundamental nature of reality. Nobody knows. And that's what makes science so exciting. Science isn't a collection of answers. It's a method for asking better questions. The greatest scientists weren't remembered because they pretended to know everything. They were remembered because they had the courage to admit what they didn't know, and the curiosity to keep searching. Perhaps one day, humanity will finally understand consciousness. Perhaps future generations will look back at us the way we look back at people who once believed diseases were caused by evil spirits. Or perhaps consciousness is even stranger than we can currently imagine. Either way, the search itself is one of humanity's greatest adventures, and maybe that's the most beautiful conclusion we can reach. You are not simply a collection of atoms. You are not merely a body that changes over time. You are not only a brain made of billions of neurons. You are the universe becoming aware of itself. The same atoms that were forged inside ancient stars have somehow organized themselves into a mind capable of asking questions about its own existence. Out of dust came life. Out of life came thought. Out of thought came curiosity. And out of curiosity came this very moment, where the universe through you pauses for a second and quietly asks, "What makes me, me?" We don't yet know the complete answer. But perhaps the greatest discovery isn't the answer itself. Perhaps it's realizing that each of us carries one of the deepest mysteries in existence every single day, inside our own minds.